If you don't learn business skills, you're going to be at the mercy of others who do. It's that simple. It doesn't have to be a very long video today. I had a comment the other day on a video that said, like, oh man, sometimes it seems like the kind of things this guy says, this guy being me, seem like they're coming just like purely from a business person. I'm primarily an educator, I'm primarily a game designer, I'm primarily a game developer. If I'm not wearing the business hat, I'm being taken advantage of by somebody else who is. And it doesn't matter if it's a good institution, doesn't matter if it's a good company, doesn't matter if it's a good partner, doesn't matter if it's somebody who you respect, who respects you, doesn't matter. If you don't learn some business skills, you will be taken advantage of systematically, annually, consistently, without exception, by somebody else who does. And this is part of why, despite having such deeply developed and honed skills as engineers, as creative people, whether any kind of art or music, as well as people who teach, for that matter, wind up being, in many cases, paid so little, or treated so poorly, or overworked, etc., is they're at the mercy of some other business person. And this isn't at all to condemn business people. This is to say that this is kind of, unfortunately, the state of how the business world kind of has to function. But it is to say that the solution to it isn't to hate business, isn't to hate business people, isn't to object to whine about you wish the world was different. Turns out there's a lot of different moving parts to make it the way that it is, barely holding together. Is to figure out, well, you got to equip yourself to survive. You're going to have to equip yourself with those skills. There are entire shelves, a lot of people ignore, of business books in the bookstore when you go. I know sometimes it's tempting to just dive into our particular niche of comfort. Again, whether that's, for me, growing up a lot of time, it was technical reading. I know for a lot of my friends, it was creative-related, art-related reading, or some just stuff for fun. Nothing wrong with any of that kind of reading. But it's to say, you know what, every now and then wander over to that business section and learn about the things and the attitudes and the values and the systems being used by people who are, in many cases, hiring you for the gig. Whether it's on a contract relationship, whether it's your employer, whether it's a business partner who knows the business side better, whatever it is, learn that frame of perspective in the world, or you're going to get trampled all over by people who do. Not because they mean you any harm, because that's how business has to work. Which, again, ugly, kind of sucks. First time running a business like this was 2009, maybe 2008-ish, and this being, training game developers. And I knew a professor from undergrad who seemed really annoyed when he found people online who were self-promoters, who promoted their stuff, promoted their work, promoted their whatever. And what he didn't seem to acknowledge or understand is that the reason he was able to hate self-promotion is because he came from a generation of people and he works at a giant institution where somebody else is spamming the heck out of me with mail from his institution. Somebody else is blasting commercials onto television about his institution. Somebody else is heavily promoting, way grosser, way more, way bigger than any self-promoter ever could. But he gets to hide behind, well, he doesn't have to make the sausage. He doesn't have to see how it gets made, right? And it can be something that takes some comfort level to get over. This idea that you've got to communicate with customers, communicate with press, communicate with potential collaborators, sometimes communicate constructively with competitors or perceived competitors for the mutual benefit of your shared customers. The other day, so at E3, we stayed out late with some VR indies. I love them, but I don't want to name them by name here because I don't want to call attention to anybody who's in this conversation. But one guy seemed very bizarrely annoyed that there was such an emphasis this year on crossplay between console games and web games, or between games on different brands of consoles. And he was like, it's not a hard technical problem. It's all just bytes getting thrown to the server. Why are they so proud of crossplay? We had to explain crossplay is not difficult for technical reasons. It's difficult for business and legal reasons. You're having to get competitors to get on board with making agreements to each other. You have to get competitors to agree with that they don't have to lock their customers into getting their friends to buy the same system as them. Like, that's a big deal. That's a really hard conversation to have. And that doesn't mean that it's not hard. It means it's a much different kind of hard. It's a kind that involves us getting out and having conversations, meeting people, talking to people, and like I say, sometimes crossing lines specifically to people who seem like they're competitors to do something better for their customers. That's hard, and that's a skill worth having. So I wanted to think about that self-promotion thing and about why you got to learn to feel like it's okay. Our generation, whether or not you count me as a millennial or Gen X or wherever you think I am, I realize I'm slightly older than I look, but certainly a lot of my listeners, probably more so millennial generation, we don't have the privilege that our parents' generation did of 30, 40-year career arcs in the same company. Most of us, especially if you're staying in the game industry and game-related professions, whether it is in, like I say, contracting, working inside of a studio, even directly on someone else's salary, it's a high volatility industry, and we're at a high volatility time in U.S. history, or wherever you may be in the world. A lot of it's kind of on the same page of rapid technology advancement, lots of rapid market changes. Every 2 to 5 years, we're all looking for another gig, right? We're all looking for a new thing to be doing. And because of that, your next opportunity comes from your ability to identify and demonstrate your value as to what you've done on projects, as to your role in it. It's not enough to just hide behind a curtain of, I was in a big team of people who did something cool. You got to say exactly what you did and how it mattered. Does that make sense? That's that long term, that brand value you're able to build for yourself online, which I know it can sound skeezy, can sound gross. Twitter and social media and Facebook and LinkedIn and all that, it's not everybody's thing. But again, until you accept that that's a hat you might have to wear sometimes, way you might have to think about things, you're going to be at the mercy of somebody else who does. Somebody else who's a networker. Somebody else who's a communicator. Somebody else who's a planner. That's one of the other sides of business hats. Just inside of a big company, project managers, producers, their job, right, is to make sure that people are getting the task they need to get, properly prioritized, tending to it on time. If you don't learn how to do it for yourself, you have to pay somebody else to do it for you, or work for somebody else who's doing it for you. Oftentimes, the person's also deciding what size of check to write. So that's it for today. I know I said keep it short. Chris Stein for Gamp Keto. If you've never tried learning some business skills, and I don't just mean after you've released a game, then worrying about how to sell something. By that point, it's too late to market. That's not how it works. Marketing starts much earlier in the process than when a game's developed. Maybe we'll make a whole other video about that in the future. But for now, that's it. Chris Stein here for Gamp Keto. Learn some business skills, accept that even if you're kind of grossed out by it, if you're not going to do that, you're going to be somebody else who does. They're going to be calling the shots. So, yeah. Have a great one. Look forward to playing games in the future.